Beautiful blessings to you, gift of creation. This is part 4 of You and I Are Multi-Dimensional Beings of the More. I can clearly name this video being multi-dimensional versus the thingy-jingies. There's so much energies out there that do not want you to know and expand who you really are and why you came here to be and to do. It's so important to know and understand who we really are and why we are here. I've been so blessed by the God of love and compassion in my experiences of my life and the people God put right along with me on my journey. You know, the root of the word journey is from the Old French, from the 12th century of a day's work or a day's travel. Remember, every breath is so sacred. Every step is sacred. Beautiful ones, every day is sacred. Your journey through the good and the bad, and the ugly and the pretty is sacred, wrapped in eternal energies. As a kid who loved the woods, I knew there was so much more. Just being in oneness with God and creation, it was in the energies of creation. Rev was born in 1953, so we did not have the cell phones and computers and electronic games. It was in the 1950s when the television started replacing radio as a dominant broadcast medium. Dad and Mom, yes, bought one of those big, huge things called a TV for our living room. In the 1970s, Megavox, Odyssey, and Computer Space and Pong came out. Atari 2600, formerly VCS, came out somewhere in the early 1980s, I believe. So Diane and I had 2 boys. The daughter, Sunshine Kid, hadn't arrived. She would come later. And we were shopping in a store for new one of these thingy-jingies I just mentioned. A young salesperson said, "I hear something brand new is coming out soon. Why don't you wait and buy that when it hits the market?" He said it is called something like Nintendo and could be a big thing. And Nintendo came out in 1985 in North America. I think it came to be a big thing. When the wife and I married in 1976 and had our first home, it was a regular gathering of neighbors sitting out in the yards, visiting and sharing under beautiful communicating trees. Why? There was no cable TV. You had to have an antenna on your roof just to receive 3 or 4 TV stations. There was no computers, no cell phones, no electronic games. Thingy-jingies, those thingy-jingies. You become close to your fellow human beings because we spent time with one another. We had a deep understanding of who we were and what we meant to one another. It is not the same today with video chats as being in person and sharing the same air and our feet on the ground together and looking into one another's eyes. All of these things separated us from one another when the thingy-jingies arrived and folks started communicating with their cable and computers inside and not grounded with one another through Mama Earth. I was sensitive enough to know this was a game changer in splitting and separating people, and a good distraction from us being multidimensional. I worked at the local university as a manager, and they said one day, "We have to have a pager." I was one of the last to have one in our department. Yes, Rev resisted the change. Radical Rev. Then the cell phone came out, and they said, "You need the cell phone here at work," for us, the managers. Again, I resisted the change, and Radical Rev struck again. I knew these electronic thingy-jingies would separate people from one another and separate them from who they really are. Then the computer came to the managers, and I resisted this so much, but in good ways, in a loving way, that a letter was even written to me to have the computer or else be fired. Before the electronic rush at our work, the thingy-jingies, The spirit creation would tell me, like the crows, when I had an appointment or needed to do this or that. It was for sure a divine higher rhythm I was connected with in oneness. I knew these thingy-jingies would change and separate us from source, from God, from spirit, from creation, from our true selves. There was less time to spend with others made in the image of God. We were spending more time with the images of electronics. For Rev, yes, for me, it was an attempt to keep me from discovering more of my divine uniqueness and being a multidimensional being. So many thought these electronic thingy-jingies were one of a kind and high technology, and when in reality, we are one of a kind, made in God's image and connected to the high creator in multiple mystical ways. It was quite an interesting trip for me back in the 1980s and 90s to go through these new challenges because I love to be grounded to being outside. It was creator time. It was oneness time. Being intimate with the Creator is such a mystical journey wrapped in higher energies, higher vibrations, and higher dimensions. These devices changed our reality, and back then I knew existence is not confined to a singular reality. Here we are in 2025, entering 2026, and Rev is using these electronic thingy-jingies to be with you, which is a blessing for me. It was the newness of all that change back in the 1980s that I knew stuff was coming. My boss, Jim, I would have gone through a brick wall for him. He always believed in me, even as a teenager when I worked as a student helper. One day he said, "I want to show you something. Jump into the van." And we drove to the other side of the campus, and we entered this huge building. And there was this huge floor filled with cubicles with human beings, two-legged. In them, sitting at each cubicle, and they had their own computer. They kind of looked like they had been programmed themselves to be cubicle people. Again, this is back in the 80s and early 1990s. Jim said they will not get up to speak to a friend face-to-face at break time. They message one another. I said, "What does messaging mean?" I asked. We live in the Midwest, and things come to the coast first, so they say. Also remember, this university I worked at is like in the middle of cornfields, not a city, but a rural, small college town. You see, glorious ones of the divine more, the international graduate housing I managed for so long was arranged where I spent much time outside because we had 4 separate buildings. Each morning I would grab a 5-gallon white plastic bucket and walk the perimeter of our 10-acre complex and pick up trash and greet the grass and the trees and the morning sun as I walked into their energies I so needed, letting me know Rev is a multidimensional being as I was being in total oneness to prepare for the day. I had a local police officer, Tom, actually pulled me over in his cruiser with my bucket one morning. The bucket was a left-handed legal bucket, so I was okay there. He said, "Every morning you have this tranquility about you. You are shining and you're picking up trash." He was surprised I was a manager and picking up trash, which for me was a spiritual exercise of the trash in my own life that needs to be taken care of. This officer and I became friends from that first meeting with the white 5-gallon left-handed sacred bucket and Rev and Officer Tom. Thank you for stopping by and letting me share about some bumps in the road of adjusting to the incoming electronic gadgets at our workplace, the thingy-jingies. When being a multidimensional being, God and creation was communicating with me about everything, like appointments and just being one with creation. And then the thingy-jingies arrive. Please be looking for part 5 of being a multidimensional being. Thank you for stopping by, and beautiful and meaningful ways be yours.